Hi, everybody, and welcome to another comics-centered, comics-loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted to be talking on this episode with someone who it looks like has a nice, impressive collection of comics back there, actually, and that is comics creator Doc Shaner. Doc, thank you for jumping in and joining.
Absolutely happy to be here.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for saying yes. And I will start out by naming a few titles that folks probably know you for, some of my favorites. I won't name everything that you've done. It's been pretty wide-reaching, but then we can sort of go through and talk about some of your origins and journey. And so Future Quest being one of those.
Mhm.
Very excited to see Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, sort of interacting with the DC world. Love that series and those stories. You've also worked in the worlds of Superman, Batman Beyond, Batman: The Adventures Continue. I've enjoyed that. I believe you've done some covers and things for them.
Mhm.
Dial H for Hero being a very
Yeah.
creative storyline. Strange Adventures with some guy named Tom King.
Never heard
Um,
of him.
yeah, seems to be doing something. And then you've also worked on covers, I believe, for Superman 78 as well.
Yeah, yep, I did one. Yep.
Yeah. So lots of work that I love, either in the interiors or the covers or whatever it happens to be. Anything that I
Mhm.
miss that is a most positive experience so far, or most positive collaboration that you want to make sure to shout out?
Um, no, I mean you covered a lot of them. I think the most recent thing is always what I feel usually, hopefully, feel best about.
Hmm
Last thing I did that was on the stands was new champion of Shazam, which was
hmm
a really nice experience and um on the face of it would seem like a return to my roots, so to speak, but was actually I took because it was a lot of new challenges. So it was a
Yeah,
really
yeah.
positive experience. It's I've always been of being able to marry words and images in that specific way. Because there's children's books where it's an image with words, and this covers all sorts of different ways to approach it, but typically it's, text kind of floating nearby images, and it's usually very um, literal, often a one to one kind of what they're depicting, all the way to, there can be all sorts of different ways to incorporate the text, but I think comics takes that one step further in terms of how you can control pacing, how you control the way you bring a reader into the story. And I've always been fascinated by that idea. The mechanics of comic storytelling, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah, love it, love it. And there's so much there that grabs readers. So I already mentioned sort of best collaborations or experiences, but any go-to kind of folks in the industry that have been especially kind or people that you've connected with and just creatively jam with in a way?
I've been very, very fortunate in my roughly 10 years of being in the business to work with a lot of great people. And I'm not just saying that to cover my own butt. But I've been very fortunate to work with a lot of folks that I was either friendly with already or I really looked up to as a reader.
hmm
Um, Big ones. A lot of my early work was with Jeff Parker.
hmm
Um, he's an old friend, and he and I really got each other.
Yeah.
Um, and we keep in touch, and I still would love to work with him again at some point because more than just about any writer, Jeff would send me a script, and I knew exactly what he was going for.
Mm-hmm.
I I I early on when I first started working, I sometimes struggled. I would get a script and I'm like, I don't know what the writer's going for here, or just kind of wrapping my own head around what they were trying to say. But with Jeff, every time I get the script, and I was like, I know exactly what this is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
And we have very similar sensibilities and backgrounds in terms of our own reading and what we like. Um, so Parker's definitely up there. Um, Tom King, as you mentioned, he's
Mm-hmm.
I met him through Mitch Gerrits and worked with him a little bit years ago and had a great time. And over the years, I've gotten to know Tom better, and he's a good friend. But just yeah, I mean, tons. I don't want to sit here and list off every writer I've ever worked with, but it's true. I've had very few, if any, negative experiences so far. I've been very
Wonderful.
fortunate in that regard. So
Yeah, yeah. And Jeff Parker has been on, so I really enjoyed
okay,
talking with him. And Tom King's work is just it's fascinating. I don't know what it looks like at the script level, but there's such a cerebral quality and the way the panels work and kind of like how each panel unfolds, which I know you bring a lot to that as the artist as well.
yeah, that's I think I see every now and then people say something to the effect of like, how does Tom King get all these artists, all these really great artists to work on these series? And I am a firm believer Tom knows how to work with artists.
Mm-hmm.
Not that other writers don't. Of course, you know, it's a visual medium and you got to at least have some kind of foothold in how to tell a story visually to work in this business. Um, but Tom really knows how to work toward an artist,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how to make them a full collaborator on how to tell the story. And yes, he likes his formalist kind of mechanics in terms of how to tell the story.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also very hands off in terms of uh, letting the artist, you know, trusting the artist to do what they do. And I think that's why he's such a popular artists writer. He's very hands off and he's very encouraging
Mm-hmm.
that the artist kind of takes the reins and takes that story where it needs to go visually.
Yeah, yeah. And as you mentioned, it's a collaborative medium. So you really have
Hmm.
to have that for an enriching experience for everybody.
Yep.
So curious, I could have gone down a full list of what you've worked on. It's, as I've said, it's been beautiful, it's been varied, and so many great stories. But any worlds that you haven't visited yet, or any creative directions that you would love to take that haven't been on the radar just yet?
It's a tough one because I've been very fortunate in that I've been able to do, you know, I had a few years there where I was doing fill-ins and one-shots where I kind of got to jump back and forth between a lot of different things
Hmm.
that were on my wish list. So in many ways, I've kind of been able to hop in and do a little bit of everything I like. Um, I think right now I'm feeling like doing something a little more grounded.
Hmm.
Especially after Strange Adventures, where I really got to dig in and do a lot of world building,
Hmm. Hmm.
and expand on what Ran looks like in DC. Um, that and I for a long time before Strange Adventures, I'd been looking for that kind of gig where I could really get in and come up with a lot of new stuff and put it all on the page. But that really helped take care of that desire. So and then having Shazam next, which is a lot of um, it was in many ways a kind of a college romp.
Hmm.
I don't know.
Hmm.
I don't know the right word for it, but with you know magic on the edge of it on
Hmm.
the fringes. I think at the moment at least I'm interested in the idea of doing something a little more grounded and street level, so to speak, with less fantastical elements. You know,
Hmm.
I'm still at DC, and I'm exclusive to them, so it'll still be in the DC universe where you got people flying overhead all the time.
Right, right.
Um, but I like the idea of doing something a little more close to home. So,
Well, they definitely have those street level characters that
right.
I would love to see you take on, and some that you have done work with that I'd love to see more of. And I'm noticing the DC hat, so just gonna say that I also appreciate everything you're bringing creatively because these are characters that have been around decades, and to really keep breathing life into them, I imagine it's a work of like fandom on one side and creativity, but also I know it's got to be difficult in some ways to, keep bringing visions and exploring new territory and things of that nature. So I appreciate what you're doing in DC.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Hmm.
I never thought. Well, for one, I never thought that I would be working at either of the big two. I for a long time genuinely thought I'll be an indie guy,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that'll be my and I would have loved that. I would have had no problem with it. But I just didn't see where I fit in to the big two superhero stuff. And but that said, I've been exclusive at DC for almost 9 years now, I think, coming up on 9 years. And it's been great for me.
Yeah.
They've been very good to me. I've been able to foster a lot of great relationships with the editorial, and I'm very happy there. I wear the hat because it's a nice hat.
I
The,
get you. I get you.
the hat could say Doc Shaner sucks. I'd still wear it because it's a very comfortable hat.
Yes, yeah, I get you. I totally get you. I have hats like that too, and it's like I'm wearing this
Hmm.
hat just because it fits my
Yeah.
head just right. So
Right.
I'll follow the metaphor there and say I'm glad it's a good fit and glad that you're
Yeah.
working with them. Um, so anything as far as I know that there are NDAs and things like that, but anything you
Hmm.
want to this is going to continue as a metaphor. Anything that you want to hat tip as the next step of the creative journey. And I also like to give folks the chance to share about maybe like conventions that are go-to spaces for you or
Sure.
places where people can go online or in person to learn more about your work.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, the next thing I'm working on right now has not been announced yet, but I'm writing this one.
Nice, nice.
And I'm really excited about that. It's a it's a big undertaking. It's been a positive learning experience for me, I think, because I think it's easy for us folks on the art side of things to get a script and go, why'd they do this? What's this about?
Hmm.
No, I'm
Hmm.
gonna fix that. Um, and and treat it like, well, it's the writing. It's easy. You just type it.
Right, right.
And it's been a great learning experience in terms of what is expected of writers. Um, the revision process
Mhm.
is much more intricate than it is on the art side of things. We get so used to we draw a page, we hand it in, and that's it.
Mhm.
Unless there's something really, really wrong with it, or for a legal reason. I've never had this problem, but if there's a legal reason we can't show something,
Mhm. Mhm.
then you take it back and you change something. But very rarely in my career have I had to take a page back and fix anything. So I got very comfortable in that space of being able to say, here you go, that's it.
Mhm. Mhm. Next.
And yeah, yeah, yep. And I'm on to my next thing. But the writing experience has been an interesting challenge. I'm very excited about what I'm doing. Um, I can't really say much about the characters, but
Mhm. Mhm.
it's something I've been wanting to do for a long time. And like a lot of my previous DC work is something that I can't believe they went for.
Yeah.
It's something I pitched a few years ago, and um, I thought, at least I've pitched something myself, and I can say I did it. And if nothing ever comes of it, that's fine. But they surprisingly they went for it. So I've started drawing it, and I assume sometime in the next year we'll hear more about it. But Um, so that's very exciting. As
Hmm.
far as conventions and stuff, I think the only one I have left this year is I'm a Grand Rapids, Michigan native,
Hmm.
and the Grand Rapids convention is coming up in early November. I think it's the 3rd through the 5th, and I'll be there. But I think that's it for me for conventions for the year. And yeah, I mean, Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it
Right,
is
right.
is the best place right now, even though I've been kind of updating that less and less as things get worse on there.
Hmm. Hmm. I
um,
understand.
because I have a website, but I'm not great about remembering to update it, admittedly. Uh, but yeah, Twitter or I'm also on Instagram, and I try to remember to post drawings and covers and whatnot there. But that's probably about the best place to find me.
Awesome, awesome. Well, I appreciate again all that you do, and I appreciate your time. And as you're talking about updating these things, Instagram, X, the website,
Mhm.
uh, I'm just thinking about that balance of like you also have all of the creative stuff to do that then you have to share about. So, yeah, thanks
A
for
lot.
sharing things out there when you have time,
Yeah, yeah.
and looking forward to seeing what you're doing in the world of writing. And as you were talking about that, I was just thinking about the number of people that have come on here and said, I wrote that same page 12 times.
Yeah, yep, a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah. So appreciate your time, and anything that I've missed that you want to make sure to share about or shout out. Anything from the comics collection back there that you want to point
Oh,
to
geez.
or
So much of it is, I mean, this is only like I have the shelves along this wall too.
Oh wow, wow.
I mean, this is maybe a quarter of it. Um, I mean, those long boxes right there are all full of 90s comics.
Love it,
That's
love
my
it.
bread and butter lately. So,
Yeah. That was I was the late 80s, 90s. That's when I discovered comics. So
mhm.
much appreciation for that. Yeah, yeah. And then obviously the reading informs the work. You're a person that
Yep,
dives in and reads and also brings it to the page.
it's important. It's especially in this kind of, with DC specifically, where you've got 80 years of history
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
draw upon for what, depending on the character you're working on. Um, there's a pretty high degree of research involved in that,
Hmm.
and reading up on. Not that it's. I don't. I'm of the mind that it's not always a necessity, but I think it can only improve your understanding of a character and what they've already been through and where you can take them in the future. Um, so in that regard, I think it's important. Um, I don't view it so much as like homework to make sure that this lines up with whatever
Hmm.
issue
Hmm.
from
Hmm.
68, but I do want it to I want to be informed going into working on something. So
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
yeah,
Well, thank you again, and glad to share about your work anytime.
yeah. Thank you so much for having me.